the world wants to know. And if you would, please introduce yourself to my listeners.
Well, first, Pastor Mike, let me say thank you for having me. My name is Jacquelyn Upshaw. I go by Jacquelyn, and I am the founder and host of a podcast show called Informative Conversations Podcast. I'm the mother of two amazing children, and I also promote a holistic health and wellness product.
Wow, that's very interesting. So tell us about your podcast and what caused you to decide to go into a podcast. What's the topic and theme and all that good stuff?
All right. So Pastor Mike, I was ill for in 2011. I was diagnosed with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, and they got progressively worse over time. And so for about 10 years, I was bedridden up and down. I would be on one medication, I would do good for a while, and then I would go down again. And the last time I was down to 103 pounds. So I basically raised my children from the bed, but I must say that I did have family and friends who were there to help, and excuse me, and even neighbors that helped. And we made it through, and I'm doing better. Well, in 2019, over 20 years ago, I became part of a group. It was four of us, and it's called Goals, God's Opportunities Advancing the Lives of Sisters. But through all that time, it was started off with four. Two of them reached their goals, and two of us did not. So we were still progressing. We would have monthly meetings. So fast forward, 2019, I started using the holistic product. I started doing better. And I was doing my vision board and setting up the goals. And I don't even know. I know it was God. I can't even put my hand on when it first came. But I said to the person in the meeting, I said, I think I'm going to do a podcast. And she said, you should. And the next day, she had put in my inbox, she had sent me an email of how to start a podcast.
Wow.
I know. And I started, and I mean, we have goals and timelines and, deadlines to meet. And so that's what I started doing. That became part of my vision board. And I was going back and forth with the Lord about how often I was going to do it, because when you don't know what to do, you just go by what you hear and what you read, and my spirit kept saying once a month, and I kept thinking that's not going to be good enough and blah blah. But I went ahead and obeyed. First, let me say I am so glad I did, because mind you, I'm just coming upon improving my health, so it's already been fluctuating back and forth. So I'm stepping into something I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just being led. And I needed to give my body time to get strength.
Right.
Healing is a process. So you don't just jump back up, even though mentally you feel like you can and you want to, that's good. But you don't just jump up from illness and all of a sudden you're back to this person that you were before. You have to allow the process to play out.
I know how that is. I think it took me a year to get over chemo.
Right. And so I was just happy, and you can probably relate to this. I was just happy being able to do something.
Exactly. Yeah.
And being able to do something didn't negate my responsibilities of my home to my child. My older child has gone, but I still have another child. And so I still have responsibilities to my home and running my house, and she's my first priority.
Right.
And so anyway, I went ahead, and I was afraid. And my friend Sherry, she's the one that works with me in the group, and she was doing a summit, and she said, I want you to speak on how to start a podcast. And I was so afraid. And so we had it scheduled for a time for us to start to speak. And when we scheduled, I wasn't dressed. I just thought we were just going to talk like without the video.
Right.
She said, no, you need a video. I said, well, we can reschedule it. She said, no. How much time do you need to prepare? So she said, you just go and get dressed and you do
And we're
it.
going to do this now, right?
Yes. And I went in, so I did, and then we set up another time, just, maybe an hour or so later, and I came in and I did it. And once we talked about it later, and she said, my editor has said you were so good, because I called her the next day and I said, well, I probably shouldn't have said this, and can we take this out, and can we do, and she said, Jacquelyn, just think about it. Every interview you do, you probably think about something you wish you had said or something you wish you hadn't said.
Yeah.
So let's just get rid of that fear right now. She said, my editor said you were good. And I knew you were afraid initially, and that's why I pushed you. And I always say she was the person that pushed me into the water so that I could go ahead and do what God had called me to do.
Well, that's a blessing, because sometimes you need a little push to get going.
You do. And you need to have, that's why who you have as your friends are important too, in helping you to lift you up, instead of keeping friends that want you to always be down.
That's true, because iron sharpens iron.
Yes, exactly. And so it was later on that when I started the podcast, another friend said to me, Jacquelyn, I look at you and I remember your testimony and how, I saw you go through what you went through and trusted God and hung in there and endured. She said, and now you have a podcast. And I remember when you were taking a medication and you used to stutter. And I said, oh my goodness, I forgot all about that. That I used to stutter very bad. And she said, and now you have a podcast.
Wow.
I know.
That's definitely a magnificent turnaround right there.
It is amazing, because I never thought about it. I had, when you've gone through so much, you sometimes forget about the things that have been a ministry to somebody else is just a part of your survival. Right. So go ahead.
Yeah, when you're focusing on getting better and getting healthy and trying to defeat any type of illness, you have a tendency to overlook some of the other stuff people may be noticing.
Yes. And it's ministry for them, how you carry your life. She said to me, how you trusted God. She said, if I could just, do half of that. And late, when the people are talking to me and they say, I was calling you to check on you, but so often you would be encouraging me and lifting me up. And, when they hang up the phone, well, if she could do this from her bed, or if she could trust God for this and that, surely I can do what I need to do.
Exactly. Yeah. I got to share this with you real quick. Mm-hmm. When I was going through chemo and going to the VA hospital, I made sure I had my minister cap on, the one you see right there.
Yes.
And we would be sitting in the waiting room waiting for our turn for chemo. And somebody asked me, are you a pastor? Yes. And then next thing you know, about 10 minutes later, everybody's giggling and talking about Jesus.
Yes. Yeah. And that encouraged them,
Yeah.
I had a neighbor to come over one time, and she was really struggling and feeling down and feeling really bad. And she didn't know me that well. I was kind of new to the neighborhood, but people knew me through my children and their children. And so she was just wanting to come and sit down. And she said, your children, they're just so respectful and nice. I just wanted to meet you to see who you were. And she came over, and then as she got to know me, she would come over. And one time she came over and she was really down and she was really out and talking about all that was happening. And so I shared a little my testimony with her, and then I showed her my legs, the scars, because I had lupus scars on my legs.
Right.
And they were still healing, but there were holes there. And she looked at me and she said, oh my God, let me get out of here. I can handle anything. You just showed me holes in your leg and look at you go. She said, let me just go on and do what I need to do and just get out of here. I don't have any problem.
Yeah.
And I said,
Wow.
God, thank you. But it's those things, I remember when I was going through my process, and one of the ladies, several of the nurses, and one of them, they take pictures. They have to take pictures of your wounds to see the progression of them.
Right.
And I came in one time and I was looking so much better and so healthy, just my disposition, period. And she said, Miss Upshaw, can I just take a picture of you? She said, I will get to the wounds, but I just want to take a picture of you because I want to be able to tell people what you looked like before and what you look like now. I said, sure, because these are things we don't realize when we're going through, that we're encouraging someone.
Right, exactly. Because I think the medical community finally realized in the last 50 years that the healing process is physical, mental, and spiritual.
Yes.
And they finally started incorporating the spiritual aspect of it recently.
Yes.
And I guess they finally woke up and smelled the coffee.
Yes. But the good thing is that God will allow us to wake up,
Yeah,
and
that's
as
true.
you say, smell the coffee, get the message. So back to, I guess the question you started off initially, it was asking me about my podcast.
Yes.
I was trying to decide the name of it. I said, well, all I know is, I've been raising children in the past several years since my illness took me out of work. I said, so, and during that time, people have just encouraged me and shared information with me. I said, and especially during the time of raising children through the younger years and the teenage years, and now the young adult years. And I said, well, I'm going to call it Encouraging Parenting Podcast.
Okay.
Starting off with Encouraging Parenting Podcast. The thing is, first of all, I just accepted and did it once a month, and whatever God put in my spirit, that's what I would that's who I would reach out to, and that's what the podcast would be on. And but the podcast, they were never about parenting, but they were always encouraging. And so after 12 episodes, I talked to my team and said, okay, we need to rebrand this. And so we rebranded it to Informative Conversations Podcast.
Okay.
And we kept the encouraging in there, but kept the information going. And so a couple of things I want to say about that. When God calls you to do something, you do it.
Right. Exactly.
That year, those 12 episodes taught me a whole lot about podcasting. It allowed me to, like I said, be able to manage my home and my family and my health while learning at the same time. And whatever progressing you need to do, if he has me to rebrand it again or wherever he takes it, the point is step into the water, be obedient.
Yep.
And there are things you can learn. We have so much information at our hands now, between YouTube and emails and free seminars. And I had no idea that COVID was going to occur when I was planning this. But what if I hadn't obeyed God? This helped me to be able to do something mentally,
Exactly.
To have a purpose and a focus to do something mentally.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that. So with my podcast, we have informative conversations. First of all, our goal is to encourage, inform, and inspire all the listeners. So I give back to them what was given to me, information that I needed to know. One of the episodes was on financial freedom, and it talks about getting your financial house in order. This by Dr. Sherry Y. Smith. She talks about side hustles to wealth, and she has a site. It's called alifeoffinancialfreedom.com. But she said, even during COVID, when so many people were losing jobs, there were so many other things. There's so many things out there we can do to earn side money that we don't even know about. But she exposes a lot of those things. Airbnb, taking surveys. It's just so many things that she talks about on that. And then I did another one on the importance of preparing for family care. And this one, is things that people can do, everyone over the age of 18, the things that you need for like an advanced directive and a will, and especially in this time of COVID.
Right.
And, we
Yep.
don't plan to get sick. We plan for life. When new life is coming, we plan for that. We plan for death, but we don't plan for in the middle, for when she talks about the sandwich generation, which I was one of them, where I was raising young children and taking care of an elderly parent before they passed. We don't plan for that. But there are services out there for that, that if we plan in advance, that we have access to be able to have care to come in to our homes. Because most of the time, the person who is taking care of a sick person, that person's health begins to decline.
Mm.
And we don't know how difficult that is until we're in the middle, and it's happening to so many families. So attorney Cindy Nelson of Nelson Elder Care Law, she goes into everything we need and explains why we need it.
Right. I know being a caregiver is a very stressful, because I've been in that role before, and that's very stressful. No matter how mentally strong you think you are, when you're a caregiver for somebody you love, it has a tendency to wear you down.
Yes, it does, and you don't, and you don't want to have your attitude or anything, but then just think about. That's why they call it the sandwich generation. Think about so many people that have children that they're still raising, and they still have to be responsible. And then the guilt of putting a parent in a nursing home. And if you do, when do you get to go and visit them? And all these things we can plan for, and we can have access to. There are funds out there that will help us if we just know. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So much we don't know is available to us.
That's true. Yeah.
And then I spoke with Pastor Rook. He is a pastor that lost his wife and his mother to COVID-19.
Wow.
And we talk about the struggles that he went through. And he talks about his anger with God, why take his wife after 20 years and why God didn't take him. And then on the newer podcast, I circle around and interview him 1 year later. So actually his podcast is my December podcast. And we have both versions, 1 and 2, about how he's doing now. Another one I did was a mother and a daughter. It's Bex and Adventure Time Louie. And she has a YouTube channel. And this daughter, after college, she decided she just wanted to travel the world. So she converted her van into a home and started traveling the lower 48.
Okay.
Well, her brother graduated from high school and went to college. And so her mom cut the apron strings while he was in college and decided to travel with her daughter. I know. And she was talking about how much freeing it was. And the mom got her own, converted her own van too. How freeing it was not to have to pay those expenses of living they were living in California. And her mom is a virtual office assistant. So she still was able to keep her job and keep her income because she could work anywhere in the world as long as she has access to internet.
That sounds exciting.
So exciting. And it's alternative living. But what they did, I went back and interviewed them again. What they did was, after touring like the lower 48, they decided where they wanted to live. And so they bought property in Alaska, sight unseen, and moved to Alaska.
I don't know if I go to Alaska.
but all this is shown on her YouTube channel, Adventure Time Louie, and that's Louie. But it's just alternative living, things that we don't think about, Right. Things you can do. And you just think of a young person, she's 23, just traveling. She and her dog traveling the world. And then I interviewed an author, her name is Marsha Sawyer, and she wrote a book called The Spiral Effect. And it's based on us as Christians, how we keep repeating the same things in life.
I believe
Even
that. I
God.
believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. And why we do it, and we keep repeating our failures, our declines, and she does a teaching on it, and she goes into it. It's a really, really good book to help you look at yourself. Why am I doing this? Another one I did was Finding Love Again. They were married in their 70s. One had been divorced and one spouse passed. And I did this for the February, we refer to it as the love month. And they were so inspiring, and they're so in love. And what the man was my father, and he was wondering, would God do it again? After 40 years of marriage, he lost his wife, and right at retirement, when he was ready to just give her everything that she had stood by him through, and she was gone.
Wow.
And so I just saw a man that just was, God, I don't understand. But God, and he asked that question, would God do it again? And he shares his testimony because God really did it again. And my mother, she was praying for God to send him another wife. And she encouraged him and would say to us, your dad should remarry. You don't want your dad to be lonely.
Okay.
And we talk about that whole thing and just how God answered her prayers. And then the big one, the menopause and nutrition episode.
Oh, wow. That sounds interesting.
Yeah. Now we're going to re-air that one in January of 22, because there were so many questions and just so much that we don't know about menopause, but we need to know because of the effects that it has on our mental stability, and it's breaking up marriages that have been together for years. And there is help out there, and part of the help is our nutrition. And we don't have to be afraid of the remedies that our parents used when they didn't know really what it was. They didn't know what was going on. They were just going through the process. And
Right.
we have help now. And how we think that the menopause, we say that as the entire period, but menopause is really just one day. The rest is perimenopause and postmenopause. So, like I said, we speak with a person, Jackie Lynch, who specializes in menopause and nutrition, and she has all kinds of websites for you, and information and books to help you get an understanding and get help from that.
Right.
I spoke to a doctor about the top questions about COVID-19 vaccinations back when, the vaccines were coming out, and why people had hesitancy. So he just shared a lot of information, answered all the questions that we needed to know about that. And then another one I did was Mother's Day. And I had a discussion with 3 ladies, and they were talking about how our mothers influence us and what we kept and what we took away and what we've learned as mothers and what we implemented in our children, the things that we receive from them. And just as life is, the things that we said we wouldn't do, that our parents did. And we laugh now because we see ourselves doing those things.
Wow.
And the benefits of it. And then another one I did was at the beginning of COVID. I interviewed a mom and a teacher. She was already a teacher that taught from home. And when COVID hit, she had a middle school child, a high school child, and her college student had to move back home, as well as her husband working in the house. And she discusses all the different effects it had on the home, on the work, on the children, on the marriage. So those are the episodes that I have done thus far. Things that help us, things that inspire us, and conversations that encourage us.
Wow. I know from my experience, authors are always interesting to interview.
And why do you say that?
They just got, well, first of all, you're dealing with someone who has the ability to put together a story.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk to them, they tend to have a tendency to take you on a journey.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I like, interviewing authors. I've interviewed a couple of them, and they're always pretty interesting to talk to.
Well, I've only interviewed one, and she was, like I said, very good and very helpful. I tend to have discussions, it appears, with day-to-day life experiences of people, because just like my story, when someone hears your story and sees what you've had to go through and how you came out of it, it encourages them to know that I can do this too. I can come out of this no matter how long it takes, no matter how long it's been. I can trust God that things are going to get better.
I agree with that, because if you think about all the support groups that are out there in the world, we see that since there's so many support groups, there's definitely a need for them. And sometimes podcasts that focus on certain types of episodes or another form of support for someone going through something.
Right. And I'm gonna tell you something I'm gonna be looking for. I'm really interested in and it was a statement that my daughter made just in passing conversation. She said, yeah, people just don't realize the anxiety that the people in my generation have. And I spoke with other moms who I know when we were coming up, and it's sad, but it's true. It was looked down upon to go to get counseling or to
Yep.
see a psychologist. But
Yep.
now, this generation, they promote it. They're asking for it. They're demanding it. And I think that's very good. And I really want to talk to them to find out why they have so much and so much anxiety. And I know it has to do with the exposure that they have, but like I said, those are the things that I tend to be led for my podcast, because it was information, it was people sharing, it was things I needed to know that were there for me. And it's so much out there that it is so much that you can choose from, but the things you really need, you don't know it's available. You just sit in your mind and think there's no hope and there's no help, and that's not true. God has provided and continues to provide everything we need in this land.
Well, I know I had a minister on my show, and he was telling me that the amount of pressure and stress that young elementary girls are going through now is at a mega level right now. And the suicide rate amongst teenage children,
yes,
and the bullying that takes place, and people trying to live up to these high standards that they see on the internet, because Hollywood always wants to put that perfect, beautiful person there, and now everybody's trying to live up to that standard. And I think we're just now realizing how it has affected like the women of the world.
Yes, and let's not forget, it affects guys too, because
True.
My generation, and I look at my father here, and I've been blessed to have two fathers, a godfather and my father in North Carolina. And these are men that care about their homes and the provision of their homes, and loving their mothers. I mean, loving their mothers and their wives and their children. And we're kind of taking that away from them, I think. And it's in I want there should be a balance, that you can be the man and still support your wife in her career, but there should be a balance with the children. Your home is still important,
Right.
and we're neglecting that. And in giving them everything, we're not giving them us. And as humans, as a child, the child really wants you.
True.
They had all those other things, but they really want you. The wife, she really wants you. The husband, I mean, he might want you and everything else, but I don't know. I'm not a man, so.
Yeah.
But I those are the type of things to get some help. And like you said, with these teenagers, as we become aware, we want to give them an outlet. Podcasts, there are so many of them now for mental health that they can listen to and receive anonymously.
Yeah. Well, the best thing to make a guy feel good is to ask him to change your tire if you got a flat, and that'll make his day.
You know why? Because he feels needed.
That's it. That's how we work. That's how our brains function.
Yeah, yeah. And so I just want to put it out there that we still need you. We're seeing where we can do things, but that doesn't mean that you're not needed.
Right, exactly. Well, unfortunately, the generation popped up where women were saying, you know, I don't need a man, blah, 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 blah. And that kind of like threw men for a loop. So we really didn't know how to respond, whether to respond in a negative way or to wonder why that viewpoint popped up or how it popped or what was behind it. And then when you talk to women who are a little bit more mature, they don't buy into that viewpoint or that philosophical new way of thinking.
Right. And so I in talking with women, when they say they don't need, I think they mean need financially.
Right.
But they still want you. They want you, whether they say it or not. That's why they're clamoring and doing everything they can to get one. So
well, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
They may not need you, but they want you.
Right. Right. Wow. Okay.
So because we need each other. There's a purpose for a man being a man and a woman being a woman.
That's true.
And we must not forget that we need each other.
Yep, that's true. That's right. That's why God made man and woman, you know, to help each other in reality.
Yes, yes. We think different. We have different gifts. You know, I'm just gonna say it. As the woman, we have more gifts, but
I believe that.
Yeah, we're multifunctional. You know, but yeah, we need each other.
Yeah, because I've met some pretty smart women in my life. So just casually talking friendship level type stuff. And I've come to the realization a lot of times I go, the women are smarter than men. I'm getting some points off that one.
Well, I'm not going to say that, you know, but it depends on what smart is.
Yeah,
our intuition is better, I believe. So in smart in that sense, you know, I've met a lot of book smart people, period, that forget they need common sense.
Yeah.
And that's what we need too. That's what's not here too. And when I think about when we go back to the children, I know I've had discussions with friends and concerning about what's really happening in our world. And I think about that there's no one home now. You know, when we were coming up, the grandmothers were in the homes.
Yeah.
So even if the mothers had, or the grandparents, mothers and grandfather, even if the mothers had to work, there was a grandparent home or aunt or a trusted uncle, someone that could help be responsible for the children. And now we don't have that.
Yeah, know? That's true. Yeah, that's true. A lot of kids are coming up too quick right now.
Yeah. Exposure. They have exposure that they don't need way before their time. So
right. And because internet, you can do one or two things. You can get on it and find something negative, or you can get on it and find something positive. And sometimes people are gravitating towards the negative versus the positive.
Yeah, and then, you know, with predators out there, the negative find the children.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And then there's so many parents that they don't know about. I mean, when my children were younger, when I would learn about one thing, like when I got on Facebook and I said, well, I want to be your mom, we don't use Facebook. And I said, well, why don't you? Mom, that's for old people. And so whatever, from Facebook to Instagram to now it's TikTok, whatever, what was it, Snapchat, whatever we're beginning to use, they gravitate to something else.
That's true. Yeah.
LinkedIn is something that they're not interested, is mainly for business, but anytime we as parents are on something, then they move to something else, to a different platform.
I guess they're trying to maintain that privacy in what they're doing.
Yeah, but we as parents, and it takes a lot to be able to learn all that and research your children and do this and that. And here's the thing, I know for me, and I would say this to any parent, anyone, and I tell my children this: when you feel the unction of the Holy Spirit, when God leads you to do something or not to do something, obey him. Obedience is better than sacrifice. Just obey him. If it's something you want to look at and your spirit is saying don't do not do it.
I agree with that 100%, because one thing I've noticed is that when you diligently seek God's word and you spend time in the word daily, some of this stuff out here in the world no longer pleases you.
Oh, that's true. That's true. When you get into your space of authenticity and into a relationship with him. But even before then, we as parents, or even as adults, you know, one of the things I say all the time, I speak out: all my children shall be taught by the Lord, and great shall be the peace of my children.
Yep.
And we as people of God and that are praying in Christ, when he tells us to pray for our leaders. So I'm praying for people that are in Congress. I'm praying for people that are in my state government, for, you know, I'm literally praying for leaders. And, you know, I remember talking to someone the other day, and they were, you know, complaining about a leader. And I said, well, yeah, but, you know, I just started praying for that person. And they said, well, I haven't gotten to the point of praying for them yet, but but we don't think about that we have a responsibility to do that. And that's part
true.
of our calling.
That's true. That's true.
So
that's definitely important that we ask God to give our leaders the wisdom and guidance to bring the nation in the right direction.
Right. Because here's what we do know. When we pray God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven, just like our prayers, he's told us how to pray, and he's answering, no matter what it looks like. Who would have thought that Jesus being beaten and God has a plan, and he's in control. So, and you know what? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Now
I lost like 30 seconds of you.
And I was about to say, the point when I'm talking about Jesus Christ and God having a plan and all things working for good, that's when we have the instability on the internet connection.
Yep. There's always something like that when something good comes up.
Yeah.
The attack comes.
Yeah. But it's not going to prosper. No weapon formed against us shall prosper. And just like I said, God is still in control. This earth is still the Lord's. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. It's still his. It is still his, and we still have to do what we need to do.
That's true. That's definitely true. I agree with that 100%. So, of course, I asked all my guests a couple of questions. What is your favorite Bible verse?
My favorite Bible verse
or book.
Well, it is Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you.
Oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. And what advice would you give my listeners?
I would tell your listeners, no matter what it looks like, and I mean whether it's in your personal life or in the world, to trust God, to spend time getting to know him, that the word of God is true. There is an end point in this world. Seek God, teach your children, and trust him, but have a daily, just a few minutes time of prayer with your children and ask God to cover them and to lead you and guide you. This is a time where we need to get real and be sincere and keep our eyes on him.
Well, that's definitely some good advice, some very well needed advice for the world today, because it's easy to get misdirected and derailed based on all the negative events that can happen in someone's life.
Right. And get your house in order. You know,
definitely.
Your living papers, your will. Get your house in order, your finances. Ask God to show you what you can do. And like I said, I have a episode on here about what you can do. You would be surprised at what you can do. But get your house in order.
Yeah, that's definitely important, because sometimes we wait to the last minute to put that stuff together when we should have did it a long time ago.
Yeah, and take care of your health. Go to your doctor's appointments. You know, get your mammograms, get your pap smears, get your annual checkups, get your dental work, your eyesight. Prepare today for how you want to be later in life. Exercise, eat right, learn about nutrition. Make you important.
Yeah, that's definitely some good advice, because in this world now, since we're getting back off the COVID shutdown and everybody's going back to work, so everybody's going to be struggling hard to catch up on bills and get more money together. They're going to start neglecting their health again, probably.
Yeah, well, and I hope not. I hope not. I mean, see if there is help out there, but yeah, we cannot neglect ourselves.
Definitely. Well, Jacquelyn, this has been a great episode on Clergy Talk Podcast. You have definitely shared some very important information with me, and I'm going to have to go to your podcast and check out some of your shows and sit down and listen to them, because they sound very, very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. And may I share with your listeners how to get in contact with me?
Please do.
Okay, so if you go to informativeconversations.com, that's the podcast. And also there you can fill out a form of if you'd like to be on the show, or something that you would like for me to do an episode about. If something you want to learn about, if you want me to do an episode on it, you can complete that. You can go to my email at iconversations@informativeconversations.com, and that's I as in informative. So again, that's iconversations@informativeconversations.com. And the phone number is 470-342-3459. 470-342-3459. I'd love to hear from you.
And that's not a problem. Once I get everything posted, I'll get that information from you again and post it up in a link so they can make it a little easier for them.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Michael. Again, thank you for having me. And to all your listeners, I want to wish them a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and the same to you.
And thank you for appearing on Clergy Talk Podcast. And you have a blessed day, and I wish blessing and peace on your family and everyone connected to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.